Hello and a very warm welcome to Tennis Podcast Towers Paris, and hello in particular to anyone that is joining us live in Tennis Podcast Towers Paris, or Faulty Towers Paris, as some might be calling it, Le Tour Défectueux. I don't know. We're still finessing the title, but definitely this is our humble abode here in Paris for the next fortnight and more. And our feelings about it are, David?
Encouraging. I'm getting used to it bit by bit, but I do have to do some contortionism in order to get around it, with the lamps and the various things that can kill you. I'm trying to get used to that.
Yeah, fans of lamps would not be disappointed in this place. I promise you, we really did try to fit as many of the lamps into shot as possible, but there's just too many to do that. But you've got the main theme lamp over there, which is, I would describe it as not fit for purpose, but our host obviously loves it. There are various other lamps assorted around the place. Maybe we'll treat you to more as we go on our Instagram. Matt's freaked out by the sort of slightly horror-ish looking masks that are staring directly at him from the table just out of shot.
I've also just spotted a lava lamp, which I hadn't noticed up till now.
I think all lamp connoisseurs have a lava lamp in their repertoire somewhere. Can you really be a lamp guy if you don't have a lava lamp? Anyway, folks, welcome to Tennis Podcast Towers Paris. We are very happy to be here. We're very happy to have you here with us as well. What are we going to talk about today? We're going to look ahead to the first day's play. Tomorrow, the order of play is out. We're going to be looking through that. We'll bring you up to date with the results that we've had at the warm-up events this week that are now all completed: Strasbourg, Rabat, Geneva and Lyon. We got a couple of questions from the barge that we're going to be answering. But first, we're going to talk about 14-time Roland Garros champion Rafael Nadal, because he came to press today. He was scheduled at 1:30 p.m. He then moved that time back to 1 p.m. and arrived at 1:23 p.m. Why did we move it at all? But nobody bore any ill will against him, did they, for being late? I mean, that's not even late for Rafael Nadal, is it? We were very naive to be there at 1 p.m. He was obviously never going to arrive at that time, but nobody knew quite what to expect. There wasn't a spare seat in the house. It's very rare that you see stewarding take place in the press conference room. Sometimes there's a bit of, shuffling up, but there's very rarely not a single spare seat in the house. And that was the case for Nadal today. And I don't say this lightly, because I've been in a lot of Nadal press conferences and almost every one of them has been a treat. But today was truly and utterly vintage. It was like he was giving us a gift. I know you're going to miss this. You're going to miss me when I'm gone. Have an absolutely vintage press conference from me. You're welcome.
Yeah, he knew what he was doing there today. I mean, for a start, he's feeling good, and that is the headline note, I suppose. The other one being that he's pretty sure he's going to finish playing this tournament this time. But, I think the main headline is that he's feeling good, and that came out in his demeanour. And he was a bit playful. He was sort of just doing all the things he's done in recent years as he's got increasingly confident at Roland Garros in front of microphones and press members. The moment he sat down, he waved to the transcript people at the back. That was his first move, which, he's often done that. He's often thanked them at the end of tournaments. And the whole thing just felt both him telling us that he's in a good place and also maybe just sending a little message to the field that, but I'm not gone yet,
Is that what he was doing, Matt?
There was this slight sense of, look, perhaps still Roland Garros has come a little bit too soon into his comeback. He was saying these things like he's feeling better, and it's the first time that he's, in his comeback, been able to run without limitations. He's not thinking about his body at the moment. He's thinking about the shots that he's playing, and he's thinking about the impact he can have on his opponents. And that's a change, because he wasn't like that in Madrid or Rome. He was worried about getting hurt. It didn't sound like he's that worried about his physical capability. What he is worried about is the fact that he hasn't just played that many matches against top players, and he's got one in the very first round. He basically said that he would be pretty confident he could be competitive a few rounds in. But I think the fact that he's got Zverev in that first round, it's a little bit unknown how he's going to come out and play. He's been playing well in practice, but can you transfer that into a match situation? That is the key question now for Nadal, because he says he's feeling healthier. He's thinking about his tennis rather than his body, but he doesn't have the reps. And coming out against a guy who's just won the lead-in tournament, we know it's a brutal draw. But there were a lot of reasons for Nadal optimism today, and I wasn't really prepared for that.
Yeah, I agree. There were a lot of reasons to believe. He said, it's the first week since I've come back that I can run in the proper way without limitations. He said, if in the bottom of my heart I didn't have any hope of having success here, then I would not be here in front of you guys. He said, don't assume that it's my last Roland Garros. He said, there's a big chance that it's going to be. But if you want me to tell you 100%, sorry, I will not. I don't want to close the door, he said. And he said, I haven't been able to explore yet how I'm able to play in healthy conditions after what he described as almost 2 years of suffering and recovery. Now, that I all found really, really encouraging, how he had a real twinkle in his eye when he was talking about how well he was practicing, didn't he? He did some real kind of side eyes to the room, like, check me out kind of thing. It really has been good. But, and I'm sorry to do this, he then also told us he was practicing well in Rome too. And that did make me go, oh, this might mean nothing.
But in Rome, he was feeling his, physical issues. He was having limitations with his running. He was practicing well, but that was there. This time he's practicing well, and those limitations, he said, are not there. Okay. So there is a difference from Rome, but I agree,
he said, I was practicing good in Rome too, and I did a disaster. and then he looked at the room and he went, oh, yeah.
Which is one of his classic expressions, I did a disaster. And then he repeated it in Spanish. Hice una desastre.
Oh, it's better in Spanish. Wow. It was a greatest hits of Rafael Nadal. We got a that's the true.
I'm feeling better, that's the true.
Oh, Matt almost had a sort of religious experience when he said that.
Does that mean we're going to get the vintage greatest hits in the tennis? I mean, I wonder whether those two things go together.
There was a great moment. He was so, he absolutely knew all the questions that were going to come at him today.
And he said, because he's asking himself.
Right, and he was respectful of all, he gets it. He gets how big a story this is for all of us. And he's grateful for that, but he also he said exactly, all these questions you're asking, I am asking myself them too. And that was that kind of summed it all up, right? We don't know until Monday, and he doesn't know until Monday.
He did make that point, didn't he? That this is all talking. And we attended the media day yesterday. We attended media day 2 today, and we love it.
It's 3 tomorrow.
we lap it all up.
Yeah, Djokovic is coming at 4:00 tomorrow.
That's right.
Don't know how we're going to weave that into our day, but we'll figure it out.
We'll work it out. But that's what you do. You talk ahead of an event, and actually, how much does any of it mean, really? I mean,
it's not good trade for podcasters saying that, David.
I mean, listen, I actually think sometimes you can feel like that was telling, but the truth is it all comes down to when they get out there. And for instance, I actually think Nadal could come out blazing and take a lead, but then his body could just give up. These are all possibilities. He could not come out blazing and then have a fight back because he gets a second wind or gets used to it as he's going along. All these things can happen. Zverev could play Rome level and just destroy him. Or he could not play that sort of level, play first set against another left-hander Tibillo that he did a few days ago, and really struggle. He could tighten. It's what makes it so tantalising, really, that this is all in play. And whereas I think maybe a week ago, I'm not sure we would have said the Nadal upside was in play for a match like this. That's where I feel like things are different right now.
Yeah, I agree. I think based on today's press conference, I have some confidence that Nadal can bring his game to bear on Chatrier and see what damage it can do to Zverev. Whereas a few days ago, I was thinking he was just going to have to try and hang on and maybe rely on Zverev not playing his best. I still think if Zverev plays his best, he's likely to be at a higher level right now. But I think there is a slight sense that Nadal is hoping that Roland Garros just brings something out of him. He said it's a magical place for him, didn't he? Couple of times.
And then Matt Futterman asked him, is this place so magical that you just feel better? Your body feels better just by virtue of walking through the gates? And he arched his eyebrow and said, unfortunately, it's not that magic. But I do feel better. Then he said, I am feeling better, though. That's the truth.
The big thing is that he's running around now thinking about hitting a ball rather than thinking about, can I run around? I think the serve is going to be a big question mark, all these things. But
the lack of free points, the fact that he has to work so hard to win points all the time. I mean, that's difficult for anybody.
But, when I think back to right at the start of the year, when he made the first iteration of this year's comeback, the first match or two he played, he played a depleted Dominic team, didn't he? But he was not having any trouble hitting through the court at that point. And I just wonder, is that just, have we been working up to that point? That all of these matches, he's struggled through a few against De Minaur and one or two others, and he's lost some horrors and then wondered whether he's going to play at all. And then he's just had 2 solid weeks of practice at Roland Garros. Is this the moment that actually it all comes flooding back? I think that's possible.
But not probable.
Well, I tell you, he made a believer out of me today.
Believer in a win, a run,
a win,
a trophy,
a
set's worth of hope.
I don't look any further than the first round. I've learnt that today from somebody else I spoke to.
You're a 1 point at a time guy.
Yeah, but listen, I don't think anybody can look beyond this match because it is kind of the biggest match that could have been drawn in the French Open, and it's in the first round, and there are multiple reasons for that because there's Zverev's court case that's coming up this week that elevates the attention that is on this match, and as a result of that, I'm not interested in what happens the rest of the tournament at this point. If Nadal wins this match and loses in the next one, I really don't think it matters in terms of him having made a comeback and created a moment.
It does feel like we're going to have a situation. Obviously, it happened halfway through the tournament at that US Open, and it could be happening on day 2 here. But it does feel like we could end up with a situation like we had in New York a couple of years ago, where once Serena went out, it felt like a completely new tournament, and we almost had to reset and adjust to a new reality. And the day afterwards was actually quite flat and weird, wasn't it? I do feel like there's a Nadal tournament and there's everything else going on right now. There's a few people in the chat here suggesting that he was trying to fake Zverev out a bit with some of the things he was saying in press. Do you think in anything he was saying today he had any kind of awareness of Zverev reading the quotes, seeing the quotes, sending a message to him?
I do. Yeah, I do.
Yeah?
Listen, I think he means it. Not that I think he doesn't mean it, but I think he was very bullish. And for him.
And that is a bit of a change, isn't it? Because very often he is playing himself down, talking down his chances.
He was playful. Even the way he was talking about practice, he says, I've been practicing and I can play with all these guys. All of them was the gist of it. I can handle all of them, that level. is what he was saying. Whether it comes out on the match court, I definitely feel. I mean, look, and then I think Zverev was probably trying to do the same the day before when he was saying, "I'm preparing for peak Nadal," but I believe one of them more than the other. Put it that way.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there was a slight sense of trying to put a bit of fear into Zverev, but I also think you could just tell by his body language he was feeling better. Like he was a bit sad in Madrid and Rome.
Playful's a very good word, actually, isn't it?
Today.
He was playful. It was like, okay, you're going to get what you came for here.
And you only do that, I think, if you're feeling good.
Yes.
Don't you? I mean, look, I know that you've been sort of dreading seeing a depleted Nadal in a sad situation because after all he's done. But you were sitting next to me, and I could just tell by your body language that you were enthused by what you were hearing. As
soon as I heard I did a disaster, David, I was in a good place. Yeah. We want to talk a little bit more about Nadal. Well, we can, frankly. And I'm sorry to do this to Hannah, who's in the chat and having a great time, because I know she's uncomfortable receiving compliments, but I'm afraid, Hannah, you're just going to have to suck it up because you're too good at what you do. Hannah wrote a column this week about Rafael Nadal, and it is absolutely sensational and summed up, as she so often does, a lot of what I feel in my bones but haven't been able to put words to or even formulate into coherent thoughts. And that is just so often the case with Hannah's writing. It's incredible. I'm going to read just a couple of short passages from it, and we're going to use that as just a bit of a jumping off point for Nadal-related chat. Here's what she says. What will Roland Garros even be like without Rafa? The stolid sense that whoever wins it is merely keeping his throne warm. When there's a string of different names on the trophy, like seeing someone else's car in the driveway of the house where you grew up, perhaps. I thought this was a world, but it turns out it's just a house where anyone can live. And then a little later she says, I know I'm treading on dangerous ground here. I just haven't had that much fun watching Nadal at the French Open over the years. It's been awe-inspiring, certainly, epoch-defining, without a doubt. Big numbers have been involved, that's for sure. But how many truly memorable French Open matches of Nadal's could you name? I'm not saying that matches have to go the distance to be great, but doesn't it say something that Nadal has been pushed to 5 sets precisely 3 times in 115 matches? So there's kind of 2 themes there of the column, sort of capturing the unreality of his imminent retirement. Despite the fact that we are talking about it incessantly, have any of us really confronted what a Nadal-less Roland Garros will actually look and feel like, such as his association with this place? And I think I'm probably most interested to hear your take on that, Matt, because you've never known a Roland Garros without Rafael Nadal. Your whole tennis life has been Nadal at Roland Garros.
Yeah, I mean, we did have one last year in that Rafael Nadal wasn't in the draw.
But he was there.
He was there kind of like as a looming figure that he could come back.
Right.
And eventually we're going to get to the point where he's not going to come back. And actually last year I was struck by how quickly the tournament moved on and how quickly the tournament takes over. And that is something that I've been struck by at, last year's US Open without Serena or Wimbledon without Federer. Like, tennis just has a way of regenerating itself, and you do move on to new players. Like, it's something we've got pretty used to. But I think Hannah's right in that, like, the association between Nadal and Roland Garros is the biggest there's ever been between a single player and a single tournament, I think, in tennis history, given how many times he's won it.
Would you agree with that, David?
Yes. I mean,
Martina at Wimbledon, like, that's a big number as well. And
9.
I would say so, really. I kind of think Federer and Wimbledon and Sampras and Wimbledon, I suppose, because of my teen years and everything that I saw. But I mean, this we're talking, thinking about this guy coming along in 2005. It's 19 years ago, and he's won it 14 times since then. I mean, yes, I can't think of another.
And I think that's it. Like, I've certainly been through a stage of slight Nadal fatigue at Roland Garros. I've come out the other side. I think probably like 2010 to 2014 when he won it 5 years in a row. That was probably my period where I was like, well, Nadal is just going to win this thing. Okay, he was pushed by Djokovic a little bit in that period, but honestly, yeah, I probably did go through some Nadal fatigue. But in the last few years, it's been, well, to use Hannah's words, awe-inspiring, and that to me has been the greater emotion. And the way he won it in 2022 with his zombie foot that he had to put to sleep, as he said in the Spanish portion of his press conference today, like, that was genuinely incredible. And I think now I look at it like Nadal at Roland Garros has been that anchor. It's been a way of telling what time of the year it is. You know, oh, Nadal's doing his thing at Roland Garros. It's May, June. And the fact that Nadal has his birthday at Roland Garros, like, it's just every year, another year goes past, and yet Nadal is still doing his thing. And that I've found very sort of comforting, I suppose, now over the years when I look back on it. And to think that that won't be there is pretty sad. But like David said, I just hope he can, you know, right now talk of a title feels insane, but I just hope he can have another moment here. He deserves another moment.
That writing from Hannah about sort of being obsessed with Nadal's retirement without really confronting the reality of it made me think of a text that I received from my brother when my grandfather passed away while we were at the Australian Open a couple of years ago. And again, I was having lots of feelings that I couldn't quite put words to, because he lived to a great age, was ready to go. It was sad, but it was no tragedy. And my brother, as he so often pithily does, says, it's just the disappearance of something that felt strangely permanent. And it's like, your grandparents are in their 90s. You know it's it's not going to last that longer, and yet you hadn't really thought about the reality of the inevitable. And sorry to bring up death, folks.
Yeah, but I understand the parallel.
But that's how that paragraph from Hannah made me feel, and what it reminded me of, you know. And in terms of that second passage I highlighted, goodness, I found that pertinent, because when I think of Nadal at Roland Garros, if I have to think about matches separate from achievements, matches, I think about Söderling 2009, which is totally unfair to a guy that's won it 14 times. The other one I would think about is the Djokovic match from a few years ago, from not quite the COVID year, but that we all watched around my telly and tennis podcast Towers Putney. But I don't know, it was all in such a COVID fog. I kind of don't want to think about that one. 2021, wasn't it?
And doesn't it say something that really you've named one of the losses that you think about, and I think about the other one he had to Djokovic when they played that incredible fourth set, can't exactly remember.
It was the same, 2021.
Right. And so he's lost them both. But which, again, it does feel unfair. Those that he won, I mean, I suppose I enjoyed Nadal most when Djokovic came along, really, and started challenging him. And that tends to be what happens. You appreciate champions when their vulnerability starts to show a little bit more. Not everybody, but I mean, I think those that are not massive Rafael Nadal fans, I think that you get this. So I had it with Martina Navratilova at the tail end of her career. I had it with Ivan Lendl at the tail end of his career. These people that just seemed invincible, as though you couldn't penetrate them in any way. And then you realise that actually they are human, and they're aging, and nothing is the same forever. And you do start to make the most of them a bit more, I think. And actually, I think when Nadal said last year that he wanted to play one more year, he decided to kind of frame it like that. I just want one more year now. All we were asking for, all I was asking for was what you said, a moment to remember Rafael Nadal as he really was? And is that possible? Well, if it's ever going to be possible, then it should happen at Roland Garros, because that's what defines him. And I mean, I hope to see it. I do. I know people might not like to hear bias or personal opinion of that type, but I'm absolutely very comfortable to say that I hope Rafael Nadal wins.
I tell you what, people know I'm a nerd, and I do spend some time, looking through winners of tournaments, and I what I think about with Nadal is the young nerd in 100 years' time who's looking through the honours board at Roland Garros and sees the name Nadal 14 times. Like, that guy is going to be like
futuristic Matt Roberts.
Right. That guy is going to be like, wow, who was that guy? I wish I'd seen him. I wish. How did he do that? And we can say we did see him. We know how he did it, and we saw it with our own eyes. And I think that's pretty cool. Like, how I feel about Suzanne Lenglen now is like, wow, I would have loved to have known the world that she lived in and what she did. Like, people will be thinking that about Rafael Nadal in 100, 200 years' time. His legacy is that set in this sport for everything that he's done, but mostly because of what he's done at Roland Garros. And I think that's pretty awesome.
I used to do it about Bjorn Borg having won it 6 times. And he'd won 5 Wimbledon, 6 French Opens. And as a kid who only saw him lose his final Wimbledon in 81, looking back on those numbers, I was awestruck by it. And I was imagining, what would that have been like to have witnessed? And here we are, having witnessed, Federer winning, 8
Wimbledons?
8 Wimbledons. Novak Djokovic having won, I think, 10 Australian Opens now, but this guy's won 14 Roland Garros titles. I mean, what is that?
And I know some people are pointing out in the chat that he very explicitly has left the door open for it not being his Roland Garros, his last Roland Garros. He said, "There's a big chance that it's going to be, but if you want me to tell you 100%, then sorry, I will not." And I totally get that, right? He wants to leave nothing on the table of his career. We are not retiring him. But equally, he's told us it's almost certainly going to be. So just to ignore that fact, as Matt summed up so beautifully there, we need to treasure this. I think we all, as tennis fans, obviously we feel particularly privileged to be here, but I think we all as tennis fans need to be in the moment of this as much as we can.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was also a little thing that he said in the Spanish portion of his press conference where he was talking about the possibility that he might play Roland Garros again next year. But he also made it very clear that he said goodbye to Madrid. And he said,
it was a tough scene
for Madrid. It was a tough scene
that.
for Madrid. He was like, I am done with Madrid. I ain't going back there.
He never really did like it.
No. But I think what that demonstrates is, like, whatever tennis Nadal is playing next year, it's not necessarily going to be with a view to having big moments. Like, I think genuinely he does think there's a chance that something special could happen this tournament. But I think in a year's time, he's pretty confident that it would pretty much be just a wave goodbye. Like, because he's not gonna play a full schedule to get ready for Roland Garros next year. He's made that pretty clear.
Yeah. Sorry, Madrid. Tough for them. There were a couple of other press conferences today. We had, most notably, I think, Bianca Andreescu and Naomi Osaka, who came at the same time. Brilliant. But luckily there's 3 of us, so we divided and conquered. Naomi Osaka, quite a big deal, actually, seeing her walk back into that press conference room. She didn't have any questions. I think very deliberately she didn't have any questions about what happened here in, this is again going into the depths of the pandemic. Was it 2020, 2021?
2021.
2021.
The
2020,
I don't think it was in October.
The 2020 and the 2021 French Open were so close to one another. It's very difficult to tell between the two. Yeah, there were no questions about that, but I was just sitting there thinking, wow, it's quite something to see you back in there and thinking about the water that's gone under the bridge since then. What did we make of how she seemed and what she had to say.
She seems in a good place to me, and I think she's really enjoying the process of trying to make a comeback and actually. I don't think she's ever devoted herself to clay the way she has the last 6 weeks. I found it fascinating that she said that she's dispensed with the idea of trying to play clay like it's a hard court. She's trying to adjust. Whereas, it was suggested to her that maybe she should try to do the opposite. Well, she says, I've been doing that. Look where that got me. So she's definitely trying to advance things. But no, she seemed... She never seems massively comfortable in those settings, but she looked fine, really, and
she was fine until
I asked her a question about her draw. I deliberately said, I know tennis players don't like looking ahead in the draw. She goes, oh, you're not going to tell me who I'm playing, are you? And I'm like,
David's face said, I was gonna.
I was just about to tell you that you're going to face Iga Swiatek in the second round if you both win. But I didn't say that. I sort of stared her down for just about half a second and thought, is she just going to relent here and let me off and allow me to ask this question? No, she's not. Okay, I'll pivot and I'll ask another one, which was, what do you think of your first round? I almost got the sense that she didn't know who that was.
I could tell you had the voice of Tim Henman in the back of your mind, who we interviewed for Tennis Relived just, 10 days ago now, a couple of weeks ago now. And the subject of draws came up. I can't remember if this was actually included in the show, this bit, or whether it was part of the cut material that will be being put out to friends in some form at some point, because it really was great. But the subject of draws came up and he said, don't believe anyone that tells you they don't look at the draw. And we pushed him on it and he said, it's bollocks. But
do you think she does not know
I do
that
think
she's
she doesn't
due to face Iga Swiatek?
I don't know how. I simply don't understand how you can kind of be at the French Open and exist in that world and not know the draw. I simply don't know how that's possible.
She's got headphones on. Maybe she just sort of keeps them on all the time.
And yet I believe her.
I believe her too. What's baffling to me
and it is something that I think she's always done that.
I agree, and there are players that's their thing. And I totally respect that. What's baffling to me is that presumably you do it as a means of stress removal, not letting your mind get away from itself. And I know this is just a case of all minds work differently, but to me that would make my mind race more.
Well, she then said in the Japanese portion of her press conference, where she answers questions in English, so we can understand what she's saying. I don't know what the first question was because it was in Japanese, but she said, oh man, you're making me stressed about the draw now.
Right, and just avoiding it in an age of information overload, that seems really stressful, having to avoid it, having to be wary that any question could potentially reference it. And as net, it feels like a stress creator to me, but she knows what she's doing. But wow.
Yeah, although I think in this specific case, it would be quite stressful to know you've got Iga Swiatek in the second round.
Yeah, I actually think a bigger issue, well, not bigger, facing Iga Swiatek at Roland Garros is obviously the ultimate issue. But I think playing first up on Sunday on Chatrier, I think that's a tough slot, a really tough slot. It's the slot that Ons Jabeur lost in a couple of days ago.
He lost
Medvedev
early.
was second match,
Right.
I think. I think that's, I don't know why, but the atmosphere is just a bit weird, isn't it? It's Sunday. I know we've had these Sunday starts a long time now.
The tournament hasn't
But,
really got going
I mean,
yet,
and she described why she gets particularly nervous for first rounds, and she says if you lose in the first round, it feels like you've lost before the tournament has even started. And if your first round's on Sunday, it's that
Times
10, yeah. So that worries me a little for Osaka. But she did seem generally in a good place, I thought, as did Bianca Andreescu, who came to not the main press conference room, but the area shortly after that, David. Similarly chaotic today, if not more so, I would say. Nobody has ever dealt with the chaos of the area with more grace and aplomb than Bianca Andreescu, I would say. She just sat there and held court. And it struck me that her whole vibe with the press, and there were quite a few press. There were some Canadian press that she obviously would know very well, some British press. There was someone there from NBC. There, it was a real eclectic mix. And just her vibe with the media that's what we all should be aiming for. That's what the tour should look at and say, that's how we want players to feel talking to the media. And that's on us as well. Everybody should be looking at ourselves and at that interview and going, this is the relationship and the vibe that we all should be aiming for, because she could totally handle herself. I got the feeling that if there was a question she didn't like, she'd just politely say, do you know what? I'm gonna pass on that one. And that would have been just fine. Like a grown up in control of herself. But she had real respect for everybody there. She was pleased that they'd taken the time to come to see her. She doesn't take for granted, I don't think, that she's worth speaking to anymore. She's making her come back after however many months out with what she called a crack to her back. She said, I cracked my back. And she went into quite a lot of detail about the rehab process, which has involved the formulation of a callus on her backbone, which apparently is a good thing. I've spent my life up until now thinking calluses were not desirable, but Bianca Andreescu was like, I've just got to protect that callus at all costs, man. I don't want to risk damaging the callus. So that's where we're at with her, which didn't sound great, but she seemed really positive to me. She's been on a lot of meditation retreats. She's been doing martial arts. She said it absolutely sucked having another injury, but in a way it was good for me, she said, because I've always identified myself too much with tennis. So being forced to spend some time outside of it and detach from it a bit was probably healthy for me. She's traveling with just her coach, who was formerly her hitting partner, and she said she just felt really comfortable with him. So he's been promoted to coach, and here she is, giving it a go again.
We can't expect much, I suppose.
Not
really.
here,
Yeah,
but I find it hard to.
I
find it hard. But yes, David, you are right. We can't expect much. Yeah, that's a good test for the callus, isn't it?
I'll say.
Develop the other type of callus.
Yeah, I just want to see her look free again out there, in every way. We'd love that. I certainly don't expect it here. But
it is, she reminiscing back 5 years, how exciting it was when she came on, and then not only backed up that entry into the tour, but won the US Open and beat Serena Williams in the final. I just can't help thinking, imagine if you told yourself that this woman is not going to do anything notable in the next 5 years. That would be a hard one to swallow. And I hope that that's not her future, because she's so exciting when she gets going. And as you say, just a good time to be around.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, tennis is better for her being in it. We have a couple of questions from the barge. We had some excellent questions in there. We've picked out a couple. The first is from Laura. Laura asks, maybe it's too early for this question, but what does a successful year look like to Novak Djokovic now? 3 slams, 2 slams, 1 slam, no slam, but the Olympics, all the slams, but no Olympics, an Olympic medal, or just a gold medal? I think the answer to that is either a slam or an Olympic gold.
I agree. I think one at this stage would be not enough for him. I'm sure he wouldn't sign for that.
I think that's par.
If you looked back at the end of the year and he'd got another Grand Slam title, taking him to 25, all-time record, or an Olympic gold, which is the one big thing he lacks, I think he would end the year happy.
Personally, this might be something you want to debate. I don't know how you feel about this, but I think only gold would cut it. Like, obviously,
I
he'd
agree.
enjoy
Yeah.
one of the others, but I really think only gold would cut it.
Yeah,
for the Olympics.
totally. And I think his performances in bronze medal matches have kind of said that. Like when
Have
he
indicated a perhaps slight lack of...
right. Like when he
Yeah.
lost to Zverev in the semis in Tokyo, I think he then lost the bronze medal match to Carreño Busta, didn't he? I mean, he would never lose to Carreño Busta under normal circumstances. He was crushed not
Unless
to
he
have got
whacks
the
a
gold.
ball into the
Right.
line judge,
That's fair.
like
Yeah.
he did against him in
Yeah.
2020.
Yeah, I think it's gold or nothing at the Olympics in terms of what would
Which
be
is
valuable to him.
Which is interesting, isn't it? Because Iga Świątek, in her press conference yesterday, was asked about the Olympics and how big a goal that is for her, and it clearly is a big goal. And she said, "I would be happy. I would be thrilled or delighted, some sort of extreme happiness word with any medal there." And Matt thinks I'm being harsh for this, but I was just like, oh no, she said it at the draw, didn't she? It wasn't in her press conference. She said, I'd be thrilled with any medal at the Olympics. And silver and gold are the equivalent of losing in the final or reaching a semi-final. And she'd never say that about a Grand Slam. You know, dominant world number one. I'd be thrilled with losing in the final, thrilled to reach the semi-final.
She was so traumatized in Tokyo when she lost. I can't remember against who, but I remember her sitting for such a long time on her chair.
Oh, it was devastating.
sobbing. It was so sad to see her like that. And I suspect that there is, you know, a bit of trauma there, really. And at least if she won a bronze, you've done something you've never done before. And look, I mean, I'm quite sure she's going for gold, and she'll believe she can get it. But I do believe that actually it's the one event where she could walk away from in first, second, or third, and actually still be quite happy.
And maybe that's a tremendous relief for tennis players playing the Olympics, that it's not all or nothing. It's not true. I mean, I know you get a plate for runner-up in tennis, but it's all or nothing, isn't it? But personally, I think I'd be very gold or nothing at the Olympics.
Well, you'd take bronze over silver, you said.
Yeah, 'cause
I
you
mean,
still win, don't you?
once the gold is gone in this
Yeah.
in this fantasy scenario, yeah, silver I'm really not interested in.
I wonder what the average reaction to that is. What would you take? I wonder what people in the chat would
I
take.
think
What would
looking
you
at a
take?
silver medal would annoy me for the rest of my life.
Would you rather have a silver or a bronze, Matt?
I would rather have a silver.
Yeah, me too, because I think they're nicer to look at.
Specifically in tennis.
Tennis does feel a bit different, I agree, because you lose to get a silver medal and you win to get a bronze, but you've already lost if you're getting a bronze.
Who was it who got bronze in the 2012 Olympics in the men's?
I think it wasn't it Del Potro
It was
beating
Del
Djokovic?
Potro beat Djokovic. Yeah.
Again, that was another bronze medal match where
Yes.
Djokovic didn't bring it. I think the distinction between Świątek and Djokovic though is it not stage of career? Like Świątek, okay, it's pretty great for her that there's an Olympics at Roland Garros where she's dominated, but she's going to be hopefully, and I'm sure in her mind, playing other Olympics. I think if you asked her in 10 years' time if she's going into an Olympics and she hasn't got a gold, then it might be all about the gold. But I think right now, just getting a bronze and doing that for Poland, I think would be I think she'd be able to find some joy in that. Djokovic, nah. It's as I said, gold or nothing for him. But I agree that he would also, a successful year would also be one of the majors that's remaining.
Although I think
for him.
if you asked him to choose one or the other,
That's
he'd
Right,
have
that's
the-
my
he'd
next
have the gold.
question.
He'd have the gold.
Oh, over another slam.
I think so. This year, because he would back himself to win a slam next year. And actually, I think that he would probably, if you said you can have a gold and no slam ever again, or a slam one day to get to 25, but no gold, I think he'd choose the gold. For his country,
Yeah,
for his,
I think so.
for the lack,
I
for the
think
miss
so
in his
too.
career.
He would have completed tennis.
Yeah.
Done. Everything.
Yeah.
What do
Wow.
you think?
I think I hadn't thought of it in those absolute terms, but yeah, I think I agree.
It's probably the first time we've had to somewhat realistically consider that, because of course he was going to win another Grand Slam title, but actually, and I still believe he will, but I think this year maybe for the first time we're thinking, well, at some point he's going to get old, and that could be now.
It
We
could
don't
have
know.
happened.
It could have
We
happened.
just
Yeah, but that's the beauty.
don't know
We'll
yet.
find out.
Next question comes from Catherine, same church, same pew. Welcome, Catherine. Catherine says, love the pod, guys.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Catherine.
Outside of the top 10 seeds, who has the best chance at a run based on how the draws have fallen? Now, first of all, I'd like to define a run. How would we like to define that?
For a seed outside of the top 10,
Yeah.
it's got to be quarters or semis, hasn't it?
Yeah. Okay. Who are you going? It's a very different question for the men than for the women, isn't it? Are you looking at Nicholas Jarry?
I'm always looking at Nicholas Jarry. For me, I think Nick Jarry's got a bit of a nightmare.
He
for it.
has. He's losing in the fourth round, isn't he?
Well, Sinner is his fourth round.
I was
think
very
I think
convinced
Mute is
by
a bit of
Sinner.
a nightmare in the first round, to be honest. Like you can just get caught up in a circus
Well,
out
you
there.
shouldn't. It's on you if you do.
I thought you were a big Mute guy, David.
I am, but it's your own fault if you get wound up by it.
Yeah, I
Hamid
agree. Look, he
Medjedovic
should be
showed
winning
that
that.
against Luca Puig.
He should be winning
he was
that, but I
getting
think
wound
it
up,
can
but he
still
still
be a
won him.
nightmare. I
won
think
easily.
Baez is in there as well. That's not easy. But
What's Alejandro Tabilo's draw like? I've my question marks about his.
what a hospital pass of a question that is.
Isn't he that one who's playing on the outside, like the last court in the list?
Isn't
that
he
I found?
playing Zizu Bergs?
That's
He is,
it. We
yeah.
were talking about
I
that
think
earlier,
he'll
and I
win
was
that.
saying I was getting
I
pumped
think
for
he's
that.
really good to be low. He flaked against Zverev in a spectacular way. I have my mental question marks, but this is all new to him.
It probably physically,
Yeah.
maybe was what caused the. No,
I
I didn't watch the match, as you know.
No, he just got tight.
He
Did
got
he?
really
So
tight.
tight. His
yeah.
arm,
Really?
which is normally loose and fast, got
Yeah.
heavy and slow.
Oh, that's quite. It's quite
Yeah.
an insight, isn't it, to see these people under that
Yeah.
sort of pressure for the
So,
first time.
Well-
but game wise, I really think he's good.
His first big seed, if the draw holds, would be Grigor Dimitrov.
I'm going to Bilo.
Oh no, Grigor.
You
might
know we
take
haven't.
that.
You know we haven't mentioned him in any of our 3 preview shows yet.
Grigor.
Yeah.
It's traumatic for me to do that. So, but honestly, I don't see him being that relevant.
Isn't this what he's been waiting for? An open Grand Slam.
Not on clay though.
Well, look, you got to take them where they where they
Look,
come.
he
It's not,
tries best.
it's
He's
not a
just that good
perfect
at it.
world.
And I think Hubert Hurkacz is like, so that's Tabilo's, like, those are his tough seeds, if you like, Dimitrov and Hurkacz. That doesn't seem awful to me. That's not a bad shout.
Women's. It's good. It's good that Catherine's raised this question as a run because it would be really, really hard in the women's to answer. What outsider has a chance at the title?
Like-
But a run.
A run, though, means you've got to come through the section with one of our big 4 seeds. Like, so is it going to be someone coming through Swiatek's section? I don't think so.
What's Keys ranked?
Keys would be there, and I think she's in the Sabalenka section, off the top of my head.
She got very close to beating Sabalenka at the US Open, didn't she, last year?
And Keys on clay this spring has beaten
Everybody but Swiatek.
yeah, like she's won all her matches on red clay apart from against Iga Swiatek, and those have been like very legit wins. Jabeur, Goff, Samsonova a couple of times, Castella, Collins, she's just blown away. And there was a time where Madison Keys was very reliable for getting to the 4th round quarters of slams. And she is in
Major
brilliant form.
Keys was her nickname.
Yeah. Keys is a good shout, but I trust Sabalenka as well. That's the problem. Like, Sabalenka's reached the semis of the last 6 slams. She knows how to do these things.
Now, Rybakina came
I
into
think that's the section.
press.
Yeah, she's the one who's vulnerable,
Rybakina
isn't
came
she?
into press this evening, talked a good game, said some very punchy quotes about how she prefers playing Swiatek to Sabalenka, which obviously the results in the head-to-heads bear out, but it's still quite a punchy thing to say at Roland Garros about Iga Swiatek, I think. So talking a good game, but definitely not looking physically strong by all accounts. And why would she be? You know, she's consistently being struck down by either separate viral illnesses or a viral illness that keeps recurring. We don't know the details of what's going on, but I feel like the chances of her being physically 100% are incredibly slim.
And yet, if she was able to get through some matches and feel better, you could still think she could be a massive threat to everybody. But I don't expect the others to underachieve at this event. That's the difference. Coco Gauff, you know, I think she's far from the finished article as to what she can maybe be one day as a player if she can sort out some elements of a game. But just, you know, I didn't talk about the little interactions I heard with her in the media day yesterday, just in the communal area, in the area, where she's just so comfortable in her own skin with other players, and she's giving them a hard time, but she's just very clear in her own mind as to who she is and what she's going to go out there and do. And putting her away in a match, you better be good, or you better be just massively mentally strong, and I don't think there's anybody mentally stronger in the sport right now than Coco Gauff. So I would expect her to reach her seeded position and end up losing to Iga Swiatek as usual.
Hannah wants to know how much of this Roland Garros you're planning to spend in the area, David.
Quite a bit. It's fun.
That's where David can loiter, doorstep.
Yeah. It is honestly an anxiety dream for me and Matt, but David's
fun.
just finding excuses to go there. Who's in Rybakina's section that could profit, Matt?
Just give me a few more seconds.
Some people are throwing Andreeva out there.
Look, Svitolina.
I just saw
Jasmine Paolini.
Okay. Yep. Well, you know, maybe.
David's
watched,
never saying anything
Zheng Qinwen.
bad about Jasmine Paolini.
I could believe
again.
that. I could believe that Zheng Qinwen could do it. I watched quite a bit of her on the clay. She ended up losing to Goff, I think, in Madrid, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But she had some wins before that made me think she can play on this stuff. You know, she can move on it. She looks comfortable. Andreeva can play on anything, and she's a lovely player to watch. But I watched her get just powered off the court by Paula Badosa, somebody who's a proper clay courter with a big forehand, you know, and I wonder whether you can get away with not having that sort of power.
I think if we're counting quarterfinal as a run, then Andreeva's a decent shout because she's in the Sakkari Kasatkina bit. Like she could get to that quarter to face Sabalenka or Keys.
Okay.
You think Sakkari?
Yeah.
I don't.
No, I don't either. I think that's pretty punchy.
I'm still going with my view that she's got a new coach and that better work because I'm putting a lot of stock in that.
Touched on Keys winning Strasbourg. She beat Danielle Collins very handily earlier today in the final there. Peyton Stearns won Rabat, beat Maya Sharif in the final.
And picking up on the Sakkari point, Tom Hill, Sakkari's former coach, is now coaching Peyton Stearns, and he might be a Rabat expert because for a long time that was Sakkari's only title, wasn't it? Rabat. And
big Rabat
Peyton
guy.
Stearns has now added that to her list of honours. So yeah, like it's a hell of a run to the title.
Absolutely.
And she was, well, we said it the other day, 5-love, 40-30 down, match point in the final set of her quarterfinal, won 7 games in a row and wins the tournament. Crazy.
Yeah. Well done her. Geneva won by Casper Ruud, winning two matches in a day. And obviously that's fantastic. I don't know, net, is this positive for Casper Ruud with a view to the French Open?
Well, look, I was looking at his results from 2 years ago when he won the title in Geneva and then went on to reach the final Roland Garros. And there were some grueling matches that he played, including the final against Joao Sosa, 7-6 in the third. And then last year he lost out a very narrow, long match against Nicolas Jarry in the quarterfinals. So he had a bit more time to get there. but it doesn't really seem to bother him. Now, on paper, I don't think it's a great idea, but I'm not sure he is like the other top players. I almost wonder whether he's the sort of player, in order to be a top player, he has to play all the time and not try and peak in that way. I mean, look what playing half a schedule did for him at Wimbledon. That didn't do so well. So maybe he just needs to keep pushing on. But what do you think?
Well, his draws got easier. We mentioned the other day that he had Jakub Mensik in the first round. Mensiks were drawn. And I think that's a helpful thing for Casper Ruud. I can't actually quite remember who's replaced him, but I don't think it's as tough as Mensik. You know, it'd be a qualifier. So that might help him ease in a bit. I don't worry about him physically. Like, I think physically he can hold up, like 2 matches in one day. I don't think it's a huge deal. I think he can play his opening match maybe on the Tuesday. Like, he's got enough time. It's just a lot of time to be on, sort of mentally, isn't it? Like, going from playing the week before a slam to playing a slam. But he's done it before, and this is... It kind of feels harsh to say this is a big tournament for Casper Ruud, because he has actually shown a lot at slams in the past, but he's got a big chance here of a run. And I think if he doesn't make he's got that quarter with, is it Djokovic? So if he doesn't make that, I think he'll be pretty gutted, and he probably should be.
The Lyon title was won by another young Frenchman, of course. Won last year by your guy Artifice, won this year by Giovanni Mpesci Perricard, beat Thomas Martin Etcheverry in the final. He's 20 years old, Mpesci Perricard, and he's 203 centimetres, which is a lot of centimetres.
That's taller than me.
Taller than you?
Yeah, that's taller than me. I'm 2 meters tall. He's 3 or 4 centimeters taller than me. So he's 6'8".
That really is tall. Yeah. I texted my brother when he reached the final, because he watches a lot of challenger tennis. It's a family of nerds. And asked for a lowdown on him, and he just said, very tall, big forehand. So that's what we know. And
he was... I was stunned he got over the line in this. He served for it, got very tight, went into a final set tie break. He missed a volley that, made me think of that one that Andy Roddick missed in the Wimbledon final in 2009, except a hell of a lot easier. That was a high backhand volley for Roddick. This was a high forehand, missed it by miles. I then went down our very many stairs thinking, well, he's choking, this guy. I'm going to come back, and Thomas Martin Etcheverry has won it. And the opposite had happened. He had somehow got himself over the line. And yeah, what a fun moment for that tournament with back-to-back young French
And I think
champions.
If he wins his opening round in Paris, he would play the winner of Zverev Nadal.
Yes.
He has David Goffin here. I suspect what will happen is what happened to Artifice here last year, which is it was just too much. He lost to Alejandro Davidovich Fokina, didn't he? First round, and looked well out of gas. And I think that's the right trade-off at that stage of career.
You say he's facing Goffin?
David Goffin, yeah.
I don't know whether it was in Rome or probably would have been last week in Geneva or Lyon. He got an absolute thumping, about 2-1 by somebody. I can't remember who. But I remember looking at that score and thinking, what's happened there?
I think it might just be that it's 2024 and it's David Goffin.
So maybe, Goffin's still a good player, but maybe that's not the worst draw in the world.
David getting hyped about young Frenchmen.
Absolutely.
Nothing new there. Okay, what's on the schedule for tomorrow? As we've discussed, Chatrier opens up at midday local time with Lucia Bronzetti against Naomi Osaka. That's followed by Carlos Alcaraz against JJ Wolf. Lucky loser, I think. JJ Wolf lost in the final round of qualifying. And then the last day session match on Chatrier tomorrow is... what is Lise's first name? Ava Lise.
Right.
Against Caroline Garcia. And then as David reported via the rumour mill yesterday, Stan Wawrinka against Andy Murray is indeed in the night session.
Got that in the area. See, that's where you want to be.
That's a not before 8:15. So, yeah, could be a late one to start things off. Tennis.
Not thrilled at that shit.
Not thrilled. Suzanne Lenglen kicks off with Ugo Humbert against Lorenzo Sonego. That's a strong start for Susie, isn't it?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's where David will be.
And
for sure.
Susie was packed today for
Nadal's practice. They were queuing around the block. It was good vibes. Then it's Jacqueline Christian against Yelena Ostapenko.
Circle that on your order of
yeah,
five.
that's a good back-to-back to kick off Susie. Then Richard Gasquet against Borna Coric and Barbora Krejcikova against Victoria Golubich. That's the schedule over there. Simone Mathieu tomorrow starts with Andrei Rublev, 6th seed, against Taro Daniel. Then Laura Siegmund and Sophia Kenin. I'm going to try and catch a bit of that. Chloe Peke and Diana Schneider are third on Simone Mathieu.
Stay on then. There's another one of your
Schneider's my pick for tomorrow. We like Dana Schneider. And Nicolas Jarry and Corentin Moutet finish things off on Simone Mathieu. A few other matches to highlight. Grigor is second on court 14 tomorrow, David, against Alex Kovacevic. If you fancy some of that. Amanda Samova is also on that court. And actually, we did want to highlight this match, not just because...
The backhand,
and that's where Matt will be at that time tomorrow. But also because of Anisimova's opponent, 89th ranked Rebecca Shramkova, who I had not heard of, full disclosure, before Rome. She had a run there, didn't she? And that was where we got to know her and found out about her. She's 27 years old. You know, she's been plugging away at this for a long time, but she's partially sighted, right? She has pretty much no sight in one eye.
Yeah.
Which absolutely incredible.
Really, I think struck a chord with us because of the Tennis Relived show we did a month or two ago with Christine Truman, the Wimbledon finalist from the 50s and French Open champion as well, who found out later in life that she was only able to see out of one eye and that is not normal and that she was probably really damaging the chances of success because of it. Here's this player who's in a similar position, it would appear, and against Yelena Ostapenko in that match we saw, she can really play. She can play.
Sorry, Matt, but I think that's tough for Anisimova tomorrow. Qualified as well, Shramkova. We move on. Luca Nardi takes on Alexandra Muller on court number 7 tomorrow. What else have we got? Kei Nishikori is playing a tennis match here tomorrow against what's Diallo's first name? Gabrielle. I was going to call him Greg. I took a shot. We have Zheng Zhizhen on court number 9. Donna Vekic against Lesia Sarenka on court 12. Cannot believe they've been drawn to face one another again. Good luck, Pam. That is followed by Jack Draper against Jesper de Jong. Clara Towson is on that court as well. And Alejandro Tabilo is indeed on court number 13 tomorrow, third on, against Zizou Bergs. It's all about to kick off. How are we feeling?
Let's do it.
I'm ready.
Yeah.
I'm ready. That is the truth. We have our French Open mascot, and that mascot is Bachir. I posted a picture of Bachir on our Instagram today, knowing full well that I would instantly get a text from my mum, who is an animal portrait artist and has a real eye for beautiful animals, singling out Bachir as a fantastic potential portrait subject. He's a beauty, absolute beauty. I'll drip feed pictures of him over the course of the fortnight. We have our mascots. I've got the dearly departed Darwin. David has Francis, and Matt has Haida and Soma. And fates have fared differently.
Oh, Thomas Match. You know, I may be going off him after today.
He's our thing, David.
You can't dangle
he got to the final.
230 points were dangled in front of me. He was up against an opponent who played 3 sets in the morning. He'd beaten Novak Djokovic.
Yeah.
And he goes a break up
It's very Thomas Mahatch.
I'm already
that
doing the
sequence of
sums in my head
events.
about where it'll take me
It
to in the
was all
standings.
totally predictable.
Very Thomas Mahatch. Billie Jean Squirrel is sponsored by Billie Jean King and Alana Kloss. Hello, Billie Jean, if you're watching. We have our top folks and executive producers, Jamie, Jeff, Greg, and Chris. And it's over to Matt for shout-outs.
We have Trisha Fitzgerald in Colorado.
Hello, Trisha.
Hi, Tricia.
Trisha is a long-time listener from the early days of Matt.
Oh,
That's a good time to start listening, I would say.
2016, 17-ish, I would have thought.
Around about the time Karen Hashanov was winning Paris in eliciting hot takes.
Yeah.
Like John Fitzgerald.
Absolutely.
I can't think of any Trishas in the tennis world.
Nor can I. Colorado. I've got a friend from Colorado. Sarah, your friend and mine.
Yes. Hello, Sarah.
We love Sarah.
Trisha? Is it short for Patricia?
I think only Trisha would be able to answer that, and she's not in the room with us.
Trisha, thank you.
We've got Rebecca from San Anselmo, California.
Hi, Rebecca. Like Rebecca Marino.
I stole it from under my nose, David. Lots of Californian tennis players, aren't there? Taylor Fritz from San Diego, I think. I don't know where I don't know where that place is.
No, nor do I.
No. Rebecca.
Like Shramkova.
Yes. Very good. Very current. Thank you, Rebecca.
This hasn't been our best work, has it? And finally, we've got Paul Bullock, who is from, well, he's originally from Maidstone in England, but he's now in Malta.
Oh,
Oh,
very
Paul.
glam. Like Tommy Paul or Paul Jubb.
Or Paul McNamee. Paul Harhouse. See, I'm making up for it.
Well done, David.
What was Paul's surname?
Bullock.
Bullock, like Fran Bullock.
Yes, who only the three of us know. Because we used to work with her at Queen's. Hi, Fran. Okay, backstory complete.
Yeah. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Paul. Oh, dear. Thank you to everyone that has joined us live today, everybody that has listened to the show, all of our friends of the Tennis Podcast that have enabled us to be in this lamp-filled palace. It is our great joy to welcome you into our abode. If there is sufficient demand, I might do a tour on our Instagram highlighting each and every lamp in all its
There's sufficient demand.
in all of its glorious detail, because there was just no way to get everything into shot. You can see our sofas, which I wrote off as sort of student style sofas in an earlier podcast. We've had people texting us saying that apparently these are actually really expensive, trendy sofas from the 80s. Maybe this is all, maybe interior designers are watching now saying, guys, this is the absolute peak of chic and we're the idiots. Who can say? But we're very pleased to be here. So thank you very much to all friends of the Tennis Podcast. If you would like to become a friend of the Tennis Podcast and support us in being here, get access to all of the brilliant stuff, all of the podcasts, Hannah's column, The Barge, all sorts of other stuff, then the link to do that is in our show notes as always. We'll be back tomorrow at the end of day one, and we'll speak to you then.